All right, I got a little preoccupied and realized I was needing to turn that off here, and I'm just gonna turn this off. All right, we're watching this interview that Dr. McCurdy had with these ladies here. It's pretty good, I guess. I mean, any interview with Dr. McCurdy, I like to hear,
Heck yeah.
but you know, every time I listen to Dr. McCurdy, I learn something new. So I say, hey, let's play it. And I have my phone. You see, I've got way too much shit going on right now.
We're still trying to recover from the Tennessee trip.
Oh God, yes. Especially like I know you had to freaking fly, but
Hmm.
I think just like 2 times in 2 weeks is like, I'm like a freaking
And your drive is like 4 or 5 hours each way.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, it's just I'll catch up. Everything will be fine. We're still recovering.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, I mean, I always learn something new whenever we watch McCurdy. So I figured this would be a really good thing. Everybody should watch. Um, these ladies look kind of mean though. They're like mean girls. Hopefully they're not. Who could be mean to Dr. McCurdy though?
I know. Let's get nerdy with Dr. McCurdy.
Yes, let's get nerdy with Dr. McCurdy.
What did Heidi
All
say
right.
before? Getting up early like a birdie.
Yeah, I
Watch
remember
Dr.
that.
McCurdy. Getting up early like a birdie to get nerdy with Dr. McCurdy.
Yeah, that was so fun. That was fun.
That's what
I
Dr.
mean, we had
Dr.
to get up.
Heidi said, the birdie thing, and then I don't know.
That was fun getting up. I mean, it sucked getting up early, but it was cool to get to talk to Dr. McCurdy.
Yeah.
Getting up early like a birdie with Dr. McCurdy to get
Hmm.
nerdy. I don't know. All right, let's see here. All right, here we go.
Here we go.
You mix it with alcohol can create them be dangerous. And some of the other comments we got, only if it's 7-OH. So again, we are not doctors, and I certainly am not a chemist who is an expert in kratom like Dr. McCurdy is coming on. But we wanted to bring an expert on that can answer that better and can talk about it because he has been researching and studying this for a long time. Without further delay, let's have Dr. Christopher McCurdy join us live. Are we ready, Dave? Great.
Hello.
Dr. McCurdy, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I want to start by saying I know you and I got to talk a little bit on the phone, but I have to tell you, since I spoke to you and we booked this interview, this has been the most engagement we've ever had on a subject on our podcast. We've seen a ton of people. We've seen a ton of people react in different ways. Some have wrote in to tell us their story of losing a loved one, to kratom. Others writing in saying that it changed their life and, whether it be pain management or not. And so what Jenny and I wanted to do is bring the expert on to talk about this because I think, as you know, there's so much misinformation out there about kratom. So we just want to focus on the facts and also speak to the pros and cons and what you've learned in your expertise.
Sure, and I appreciate the opportunity, and also I've had the same type of feedback. I've had a lot of emails from individuals that have lost loved ones, and I've had a lot of emails from people that say this has been a lifesaver for them. So there are definitely benefits, but there's obvious risks, and so happy to discuss all of that.
So let's start with the benefits. Just because I know we spent a lot of time on our first episode. We told a story of a woman who lost her son to kratom. So I would like to open the conversation with what do you know from as a chemist, what the benefits are of kratom or potential benefits?
Yeah, so I'll just start by saying traditional use was beneficial to those individuals in Southeast Asia. So it really originated around the border of where Peninsular Malaysia and Thailand connect. And in that region, it's obviously tropical, very hot, and the outdoor laborers used it to get energy, to have stamina, to be able to survive and thrive in that outdoor working environment. They also used it at times to help with pain, and in some cases found that when they ran out of their opium or their opioid treatments, this was able to sort of ward off their withdrawal symptoms. And that's where we got interested in this during the opioid crisis back in the early 2000s, thinking that this could be a potential natural remedy or a natural help to the opioid crisis. I don't think it's the end-all be-all answer. I never have, but I thought it was another tool that could be a possibility. And that's really where we started to see some of the benefits in the laboratory and testing animals that we had habituated to opioids, and seeing them be able to get off of those opioids without having severe withdrawal symptoms. And then eventually being able to stop using the kratom on them, or the kratom as we call it, on them, and really not seeing any detriment. And talking with physicians at the time, of course, no one knew what this was. It was unknown even to the DEA or the federal government back in the early 2000s. And I started to talk with a physician friend of mine who was an opioid treatment specialist. He started to ask patients of his, and sure enough, there was a few that had heard of it. And if they had heard of it, they had used it or tried to use it to reduce their use of prescription opioid medications, and in some cases had success. And let's fast forward a little bit to maybe 2015, 2016, when the government was aware of this and they started to have some concerns raised themselves. There was still a lot of people that were reporting great benefit, real help with energy and mood, and a difference maker for them to get off of opioid medications, which are depressants and just kind of had them disengaged from their family or loved ones. And then those same individuals that said they were able to control their pain, but have energy and be able to return to their responsibilities, their work responsibilities, whatnot, and not feel drugged. Then let's fast forward a little bit more. When leaf material started to become that was the predominant market product, but then this was developed into extracts and concentrates, into liquid forms, which were much more powerful than.
So when you say, just for the people who are listening, when you say leaf product, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, so let's just start. The leaf is what's used off of the tree. So the tree is called Mitragyna speciosa. The leaf was used as a preparation in Thailand. They pick fresh leaves and they chew those leaves, not too dissimilar to how coca leaf is used in South Korea. And same sort of purpose, right? To give them endurance and energy in the conditions of their environment. The Malaysians typically would make a decoction, which is simply a long brewed tea. So this would be 2 or 3 hours of brewing those fresh leaves in water, in boiling water, and then they would drink that as what they call a juice. And that's how it was always traditionally, and still to this day traditionally used. Those products were of interest in the leaf material. And the belief was we could do it like, I shouldn't say I didn't do it. The belief was the industry could do it the same way that the tea industry does, which is dry the leaves, crush those leaves, package them in bags, or send them as raw bulk powders. And that's how they came into the United States for a long period of time. Even still to this day, they're coming in their sort of dried leaf form, whether they're looking like physical leaves or they're finely powdered leaf. And so those leaves are then either sold in bulk powders, so in jars or canisters, or they're sold encapsulated into capsules that can be easily consumed in such a way. When those types of products are taken, first of all, if you're making a tea with the powders, water is a very inefficient mode to extract the chemicals out of the plant material. And so there's not a lot of material that is extracted into that water or that tea that an individual would make. Same thing to be said if you were to just swallow a capsule or swallow a teaspoon or tablespoonful of the powder itself and wash it down with water. Our bodies have to work to extract the nutrients or the alkaloids or the chemicals out of that leaf material. It's still in its housing as a leaf material. So you have all the fibers, all the structural elements of the leaf to pull those chemicals out of. And so that's leaf material. And that was the predominant product for a long time in the United States.
Is that what was tested initially when you were talking about doing the laboratory test? Was it that organic?
That's what we worked on, yes. And that's and to be honest, that's what we've continued to work on almost exclusively, except for when we've isolated individual alkaloids to study those alkaloids, and we'll I'm sure get to that. One thing that we have not studied very much is the extract products, and that's
The concentration.
the concentrated products. And what those products are essentially is taking that raw leaf material, treating it with an organic solvent like ethanol or ethyl alcohol. And that is a very efficient extractor of the chemicals that are inside that leaf material. And so you can get much higher concentrations of those out of the leaf into that solution. And then that solution, you discard all those non-useful parts of the leaf that our body would just fall through as fiber and pass through our intestines and get no real benefit from, although that may be beneficial in and of itself to sort of slow down and minimize.
I was going to say slow it down, right?
Minimize exposure. versus these extracts that would allow you to bypass that whole process, and now you swallow a liquid shot where those chemicals are now much easier for our body to just readily absorb, and they get into our bloodstream much faster, and therefore to our organs in our body, including our brain, where they have their psychoactive effects much faster and at
And this-
higher levels.
And this started happening, just to clarify for everyone who's just joining us. So, by the way, is it kratom or kratom? Because I've heard both.
I say kratom because it's actually kratom, is how it's pronounced in Thailand. And so I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. Pittsburghers speed up everything they say, so I just
I'm
kratom.
from Chicago. We need
So you understand. And so kratom is actually the terminology that sort of gained in popularity in the U.S. We as scientists weren't out in the streets learning about it the way that most of the population did. We were in the lab studying it, sort of the nerdy way that we do everything, and we don't really pay attention to what's happening in the real world until suddenly the real world becomes extremely relevant to the science we're doing.
And this is around, just so to clarify for everybody, it sounds like when these different versions of extraction started happening, this is after 2015. This is more around 2017, 18, 19. They're starting to hit the market, correct?
That's right. So
Okay.
in 2016, the Drug Enforcement Agency proposed or announced its intention to place kratom and mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine, two of the alkaloids that were most known and most well studied at that point in time, and actually believed to both be contained in the plant material. We can talk about that too in a little bit. But those three things, the plant material itself, the two alkaloids, were going to be scheduled into Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substance Act, which means there's no medical use and it's highly addictive substance. This is where things like heroin and LSD reside. And so that is when everyone that never heard of it thought, wow, this must be interesting stuff. We should go and try it. Or certain people sought it out at that point. And then the popularity started to explode. It really started to explode, though, during COVID.
Right.
And we can touch on that a little bit more. But during that time frame, during that sort of, by the way, that happened at the end of 2016. So market response takes some time in order for products to start developing and evolving. But by 2017, we started to see some shots, liquid shots, concentrate products evolving in the marketplace. And they were, for the most part, not extremely concentrated. They were extracts. They were much easier for our bodies to absorb, but they weren't highly concentrated at that point. By the way, obviously the DEA rescinded their decision. There was a historic moment because that had never happened. The DEA had never rescinded a decision once they've announced an intention to do something. And so
So why were they, just so we can clarify for people who don't know that much about kratom, so why did they rescind it? Because they obviously were torn then between the benefits of the...
They were torn because, as I mentioned at the time, they believed if they put it in Schedule 1, it's highly addictive. It has no medical potential. But then there was a response when they announced these intentions. There's a 30-day response period, open public comment period required by federal law, and they received almost 30,000 comments in that 30-day period, which was totally shocking to them. They never had received such feedback on any announcement before. And if it exceeded a certain response threshold, they had to read every single response, and it exceeded that response threshold. 99% of those responses were in favor of keeping it available for the population to use. demonstrating that there's been a long historical use of this in Southeast Asia for benefit in individuals, as we already discussed. And also, the federal government did not realize that they directly funded some research, actually, in my laboratory. Back in the early, or sort of 2010s, if you will, before this announcement was made, we had a grant that was funded called Natural Products for Neuroscience. I was at the University of Mississippi at the time, which is where at that time, that was where the only legal federal marijuana farm was. And there was a real interest in looking at natural products for neuroscience. And I had a project funded in that grant program for kratom, to study it and to look at its ability to help attenuate opioid withdrawal or be beneficial for treating opioid use disorder. And so actually, once the federal government realized that that was present, they asked for all of our data, and we supplied them all the data that we had generated, posters that we had presented, papers that we had published, etc. And they realized that, oh, we've already invested federal dollars in studying this. There does appear to be some medical potential. And amongst many of the federal agencies, including the DEA, the FDA, and the NIH, they all decided that more research was needed, and they needed to fund research immediately. And we were, amongst others, one of the beneficiaries of getting funding immediately, specifically designed to understand what is this plant, and what do all the different alkaloids or chemicals that are present inside the plant do? What is their pharmacology? What do they actually do to our bodies? But on top of that, what does our body do with those chemicals? How do we process those chemicals internally? And then how do we get rid of those chemicals? Are there things that are being formed in our bodies that are harmful, beneficial, benign? All these types of metabolites, we call them, to really understand what was going on with the plant. So it was very much breaking everything down, sort of deconstructing the entire thing to understand how we could rebuild it back up and fully understand the benefits that could be there, but at the same time understand where the risks and the harms could be, and where that line is, and where do we start to see dangers? Are there certain alkaloids in the plant that are harmful, but we can't tell because they're masked when they're given in the whole context of the plant? For another example, if we go back to coca leaf that we spoke of a moment ago, coca leaf is the source of cocaine. We all know that cocaine is one of the largest substances of abuse, but it's also an incredibly powerful local anesthetic that's still used in surgical procedures in the country for particularly nose and eye surgeries. But the leaf itself is actually fairly benign when it's chewed and utilized. There's no history of it being abused. There's no history of it being addictive. And that's back 8,000 years in South American culture. So we really wanted to understand, is
In the plant, yeah.
there's
Also,
beneficial to the plant? Yeah.
Yeah, and also just to point out to everyone who's joining, listening too. So while you're doing your research, I have a question. So you guys are doing this research to try to figure out what are the benefits of this plant. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Exactly.
And figure this out. But at the same time, what is happening in the industry, more concentrate, right? Is
Yeah. Well,
unregulated, right? Unregulated concentration.
unregulated. So regulation was a big problem, and I've been standing on a stump post for years saying this is a wild, wild west marketplace, buyer beware.
Right.
As a pharmacist, I was originally trained as a pharmacist. I would not recommend anybody take this because it's available without regulation still to this day. Some states have put regulatory pathways or at least some protective barriers around these products, but for the most part, They're out there being sold in places that have no medical supervision, that can provide really no solid education on how to use them. Many of the manufacturers that make these products now try to do their best by putting, as much on the label as they can, but there's still lots of products that have really no information available on how to use them and what they're for. And so there's a real still confusion, I would say. Not only that, not all the products are equal. We've already talked about
Right.
leaf. We've talked about, sort of mild extracts. And then we get into these super concentrates, and the super concentrates really started to explode during COVID. I think people were bored and not, having things to do, and lots of things happened. But these products took off, and it was almost like an unofficial arms race to see who could produce the strongest, most concentrated product. And at that same time, we started to see lots of increases in poison control center calls, in emergency department visits, in case reports in the literature. And every case report is never a good story. Many of these are either about someone that had died from exposure to this, or was injured in such a way that they obviously needed medical attention. And so we started to realize there's this very blurry line somewhere from leaf material that seems to be not as dangerous or
Right. And it has some benefits.
right. And then maybe some of the extracts have benefits, but as we start to get to these really super concentrated products, it's always the old saying, the poison is in the dose, and the dose makes the poison. And so
Right.
as we start to see increases in concentration in any substance we take, we can start to see unwanted benefits and harms. And that's the absolute same thing that would happen with kratom.
Well, and during COVID, it starts to be marketed as a painkiller for headaches. That was marketed many different ways.
Not only that, there was sometimes during COVID where they were mounting it as a potential treatment for the virus. And so
Oh, wow. Wow.
yeah, it was really quite mind-blowing knowing that what we knew. But you know what we did as scientists? We said, hey, let's look at it and see
Right.
if it does do anything to the virus. It does not. But there was a lot of belief that, oh yeah, this is a natural remedy. It can make you healthier. It can make you stronger, help you through this. The one thing that it could possibly do is help with the pain that the COVID virus caused a lot of people. But then again, we started to see these very concentrated products, and people started using them in a more, I would say, in a more inappropriate way. There was a lot of people, I think, when the DEA asked for the public comment in 2016, that were really using this as that lifeline, as those emails that you've gotten about, really, this has helped us, this has been a miracle, it's changed my life. In fact, I have lunch with an addiction physician quite often, and prior to COVID, he was telling me that a lot of his patients were using this, and it was helping them reduce the amount of prescriptions they were taking. We didn't see each other for a couple of years because of COVID, and then we regathered for lunch, and they said, you're not going to believe what's happening now. We're seeing people coming in that want to get off and can't get off of
They're addicted.
substance.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the change, it seems. So I want to just recognize and make sure that Dr. McCurdy, you agree. The people who've written this, and your stories are real, right? Some people are seeing benefits, but the problem is there's no way, right, to know. You can't say, I know my gas station has the safe concentration, right?
There's no regulation.
There's no regulation. So we have no way of knowing what that is. And also, like you said, from our research, we found out that, there were people who were taking it, thinking it for headaches. There were other people taking it as a sleep aid. There are people who don't know, then there's a whole group of people like, well, only if you mix it with alcohol, it's bad. But then we've heard stories of people who didn't mix it with anything and unfortunately OD'd on it just because of what you buy in one place isn't going to be the same as where you buy something else, correct?
Correct. And although we have not seen products that have been adulterated since around the time that the DEA announced. We actually found products that were shipped to us from emergency departments because individuals tested positive for other drugs of abuse and swore that they were only taking the kratom product. And sure enough, and we've published on this in a couple instances, they were laced with other substances. And so this also started to give a bad connotation to what could have been beneficial at that time. We have not seen that, and let me be clear, we have not seen that in any recent analyses in the last several years. The marketplace has somewhat self-corrected and seems to be in a pretty homogeneous product. And I mean that from the standpoint of the alkaloid contents and the alkaloid ratios that are within the products. Of course, leaf would be still the least amount of those alkaloids, and these concentrates are still there. But in the ratios relative to each other, they're still pretty consistent. And we don't find adulterants within these products.
Like meaning that they're not contaminated or laced with something other than the concentration of what was in it. But what we're hearing in the news right now, and the debate is 7-OH,
And
right?
that's where we need to get to, because we've gotten to the point, which was a big fear of ours as scientists, understanding that 7-OH or 7-hydroxymitragynine, which is actually a pure mu opioid receptor agonist. It activates the mu opioid receptor just like morphine or fentanyl or heroin or any other prescription or illicit opioid does.
So you're saying it, no, just so everybody, the layperson understands. So you're saying this concentration is, your brain is going to react the same way as if you took one of those other drugs.
That's correct.
Like an opiate.
That's correct.
So everyone understands.
It is pure opiate in nature. Many people thought that the plant itself was pure opiate in nature in the very early days in the literature, and our group was one of the first groups to really unwind and start to understand the other pharmacologies. But we can come back to that. But let's focus right now on the 7-OH. We also recognized that 7-OH, we weren't detecting it in fresh leaf materials that were harvesting. Once we got to study leaf material in Malaysia in particular, which is where we really started to collaborate with scientists. Now we collaborate with Indonesian scientists, Malaysian and Thai scientists, which is essentially, I would say, where 95+% of all kratom is growing and into the marketplace. There is some local growth now in the United States as well, but the majority of it was there. And what we were finding was there was either trace amounts of 7-OH or none that we could detect in fresh plant material. We also started to see that even in the dried powders, in the leaf powders that were in the U.S. marketplace. And we think that it was because there was a faster turnover in the marketplace. And so what we've realized is that when a leaf is picked from the tree, as soon as it's picked from the tree, it's kind of like cutting part of your arm off. You're going to bleed, right? And so that leaf bleeds, and that exposes its inner fluids to the outer environment and the oxygen and the sunlight and all those types of things. And that's where we believe that 7-OH is formed. And that's why we still see it in very trace amounts in leaf products. Now, our body metabolizes mitragynine, which is the major alkaloid in the plant material and is the major alkaloid that's synthesized by the plant. Our body does metabolize it to 7-OH, but it does it in a small amount so 10 to 20%. And we still don't really have a good handle on that with clinical studies as to exactly what that percentage is. But again, it's in context with all the other chemicals in the plant. It's not by itself. So you have things that are kind of, people would understand the entourage effect with cannabis, right? So you have things that are kind of counteracting each other and battling each other as it's in the body. The same thing I believe is happening with kratom leaf products. So you're getting activation of some systems in your body, deactivation of others, and things that are kind of dampening some effects or enhancing other effects. I call it like a mixing board of sound with the different pharmacologies that are happening. But what was done was these concentrates that we talked about, these very highly concentrated alkaloid preparations that were made, were just treated with chemicals to oxidize them, just like our liver would do to oxidize them. They treated with chemicals, and they did a chemical reaction to produce now predominantly 7-OH. But the one thing that everyone seems to ignore in this discussion is that they had a concentrated product and they oxidized everything in there. So yes, the predominant thing in that concentrated product they started with was mitragynine, but there was other alkaloids present, and they oxidized everything in that mixture into compounds that, quite frankly, are unknown and unnatural. And that's where the other piece of the public health issue comes into play, because we have no idea what this new created product is, other than what the major thing is that's present, which we know is pure opioid. And so that's where sort of the double-edged public health concern came from. One is you have availability of a opioid, which arguably, and we can talk about this as well, arguably could be a bit safer of an opioid, 7-OH, than something like morphine or fentanyl or oxy.
If it was regulated with proper people distributing it.
If we understood, one, it's pharmaceutically produced and pure.
Right.
Two, if we understood exactly how the dosing should be and how much people should use and how it should be given, and a physician should be monitoring all of that.
Right.
And unfortunately, the way that it got the way that it was introduced into commerce bypassed all of those processes, including any regulatory processes. There could be residual solvents, there could be residual reactants in those products.
And 7-OH is the one we're hearing about, but there are other concentrations, correct?
Yes.
Because that was a lot of our comments was, well, as long as you don't take 7-OH, you're fine. Is that true, Dr. McCurdy? Because
so what we're finding, unfortunately, there's two other products that we know of that have been put into the marketplace. One is called mitragynine pseudoindoxil, which does not exist in the plant at all. However, it is generated in our bodies as a metabolite of 7-OH. So, but in extremely small amounts.
okay.
In amounts that are probably negligible to having any kind of effect when you take a whole leaf kratom product. However, it's just another chemical reaction step from the 7-OH soup that they make. They just take another chemical reaction step and make the pseudoindoxil. And then pseudoindoxil products are being sold, and they're often called pseudo. And what we're actually seeing now in some states like Florida, where 7-OH has been banned, we're seeing pseudoindoxil starting to predominate the marketplace. And we've actually spot checked and tested some of those products. They actually contain 7-OH. So I think they just repackaged things to get around.
Right, and that's the problem with this. I mean, I think, how do we solve it? Like, first of all, how does this is what I'm hearing from you, and this is my lay version of translating it, is that it becomes it went from a leaf It had medicinal, herbal, like many herbal supplements do. There are many things naturally that can help us in different ways, to now a drug. This is a drug when you take those concentrations and you change it and you synthesize. So that's an actual drug. And this actual drug is being sold in some states next to an energy drink or where you get your gum, right? And younger kids don't know, and it's being marketed, and there's no regulation. Is that
That's
correct? What I'm
that's
saying?
correct. And not only do younger kids don't know, but even some individuals that come in maybe wanting to try kratom product for the first time.
Right.
I've heard at smoke shops that they would offer, oh, this is the newest version or the newest product in the market, and they hand them this 7-OH product, and that's not at all what whoever was coming in was envisioning happening.
Right.
They're probably marketing it as organic, and they're getting instead basically an opioid, right? Is that
Yeah, so in the early days they were marketing it straight up as kratom.
okay?
And there's been some agreement within the industry to finally move away from that, but only certain individuals have been marketing it as, organic alkaloid, super alkaloid. They still call it kratom derived or something like that. But yeah, it's still a mess, and it's still a situation that needs to be managed. And of course, the FDA last year came out on July 29th of 2025 and encouraged the DEA to place that chemical in Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act, and that's still sitting on their desk with no action being taken yet. There's a lot of reasons that I've heard no action has been taken. It's not because of therapeutic potential at this time. It's really because of enforcement and how are they going to, sort of implement this, considering the size of that market right now
Right.
across the country.
And also it varying state to state. I mean, every state it's different, and how you can buy it and when you can buy it. And another thing I think, like the story that we had on our podcast, Randy's son's story. I mean, he wasn't mixing it with alcohol. He wasn't mixing it with anything else, and it wasn't 7-OH. Because this was before 7-OH was out there in the market. But she believes that he was taking it for potentially a headache, and when the headache didn't go away, he took more, because that's what you would do with an aspirin. And, the information he was given was that this is, a safer solution to an aspirin. Again, without the regulation of knowing even dosing. I mean, you've been studying this so many years. Do you believe that this is has a potential to be a miracle plant, or do you have more concerns than you do, the benefits?
I really believe in the plant form, in the leaf form, in the minimalist form, there's good potential for this plant to have benefits. I'm very concerned about these extracts that become really concentrated. Even some of the more mildly concentrated extracts now concern me, because we don't understand very much at all, even in animals, multiple doses of this,
Right.
chronic use of this. That's to be said even for the leaf, although we do have a historical knowledge of chronic leaf use in Southeast Asia. So as close as we can stay to that historical use, I think the safer we would be in using these products. Obviously, regulation needs to be put into place and control over this market. It needs to get out of places like vape shops and gas stations and into more legitimate, places that, even like a dispensary, that could have education to provide to people and really sort of track and keep a monitor over individuals' use. These are all best intentions, but you're always going to have people that use it, like you said, like this wasn't enough, I'm going to use more, and that unfortunately, that's kind of what our society has sort of come to. If this wasn't enough, more should be better. In the case of things that are psychoactive and potentially pharmacologically active like that, it's not usually the case where more is better.
Right.
More is usually dangerous.
How do we fix? I mean, what would you like to see happen to fix it?
I would really like to see, we've been working with the FDA. My lab has been working with the FDA on some clinical trials to ultimately understand the abuse potential of the leaf material. So we haven't even tackled extracts or concentrates in the FDA realm yet. But just getting an understanding of where that is. Where is it safe to use this? How is it safe to use this? In a way that can then be regulated and enforced by the FDA. And the FDA really needs to do their job. They're very slow, but they need to do their job and step in and
We
regulate.
have a whole episode of the FDA.
Yeah. And then for all intents and purposes, these modifications or manipulations of that leaf material, as you manipulate it further and further and further, you get to more harmful and more dangerous of a substance. It's just like I always use the example of alcohol. If you drink a light beer, and you can have 2 or 3 of those over the period of dinner or an evening, or even a couple glasses of wine, you're more than likely going to be fine if you're experienced, right? But if you drink 3 or 4 shots of tequila within that hour, it's going to definitely feel different. And that's a more concentrated form of alcohol. And then as we move to something like Bacardi 151 or Everclear, you're getting into much more concentrated alcohol that will affect you much faster and much greater. And it's got that same parallel to it. That's not to say that people can have the safe use of leaf only, because we know that people can end up taking large amounts of leaf material and end up in a bad situation as well. And so I want to know, I want people to know that it is absolutely not without harm. Even if we get to the minimalist version, there's still a risk associated with these products. But what we've seen in working with the FDA, and what we've seen historically in Southeast Asia, if that use is minimalized and it's not overused and it's not abused, if you will, there is medical benefit. And we got to understand where that benefit starts to become a risk, because we know that it can become a risk.
It sounds like it's daunting because it's such a big thing. I mean, we need manufacturing to be regulated. You've got the fear of kids and teenagers being able to walk into a gas station and buy it. It sounds like all of our government entities have a really big job ahead of them.
Yeah, and to come back to the addicting, I would say yes. It and then you open up the whole can of worms. Well, is coffee addictive? Yes, it's coffee.
Right. Because that's the big debate we saw on our socials too, that some people believe it's not addictive, right?
Yeah,
And then others think it's fear mongering.
It absolutely 100% causes physical dependence.
Okay, that's
So physical dependence is exactly what you get with coffee. So when if you drink 2 cups of coffee a day, right? Say you just drink 2 cups of coffee a day. That's not going to cause anybody a heart attack. Well, maybe some extreme cases, but 2 cups of coffee, that amount of caffeine is really not going to put you in harm's way. The average individual. And if you look at it that way, and you look at missing a day of your coffee, your 2 cups, and you end up with a headache and
Headache. Yes.
that's the same withdrawal that people are reporting from light kratom use. So
okay.
in some ways we think it's it's very much physically dependent, but that physical dependence is that headache, that crankiness, that sort of, I don't feel right until I get this. That's physical dependence, definition, period. That is not addiction.
Right.
Addiction
Right.
is really moving into completely changing brain chemistries, becoming so dependent on the substance that you literally can't function without it. We can miss our coffee one day and you're still going to be able to get to work and you're going to be able to do your things and function. And if you miss it 2 days in a row, you may still feel a little cranky, but you're going to somewhat get through that withdrawal,
Right.
and not be in the bad situation. I think the same can be said with mild use of Kratom. As you start to escalate use
And the concentration that
and
7-OH is. Yep.
concentrations, then those withdrawals can become more and more prevalent and more painful, if you will.
Did you have any studies? I mean, this has been another thing too. We've heard several cases of alcohol being mixed and that resulted in death, or the overdoses. Have you guys studied alcohol mixed with it at all, or has that?
It's somewhat interesting because we've heard people that use it in addition to their alcohol to kind of increase their buzz, if you will.
Right.
That's a risky thing, as you've already pointed out, to do. But there are studies that are funded by the National Institute on Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse showing that Kratom use is actually reducing alcohol consumption and maybe something that can help with alcoholism. Now,
Weaning off alcohol.
again, it's this really weird paradoxical stuff, right? Because if you use it to try to minimize the use, and by the way, most individuals that are using it, that report that has been very beneficial, also report that they're not drinking as much as they used to. Is it a coincidence or is it a real thing? I think that's why the National Institutes of Health is looking at studying this a little bit further.
To get more information. I think that's the biggest problem we talked about, right, Jenny, is that there's a lot of misinformation out there. We had so many mothers say that when they first started to Google, they couldn't find, what is the real facts about it. And the fact that we don't really know, you could say, what a couple of nurses we talked to said that ERs, people don't know it could be the Kratom. So they could be going in multiple times,
Right.
basically overdosing on it and have no idea the Kratom was the reason. They don't tell people I'm on Kratom. They don't say,
Right.
they think it's like magnesium. It's like taking magnesium.
I think it's all natural. Oh, I just took a natural supplement. There's no way that could.
So the studies can't show you what's happening.
Yeah, we've actually tried to implement some changes at the University of Florida because we had a baby born that was in opioid withdrawal, and the mother said that she wasn't using opioids, and so we started to pursue that as, is this an effect that Kratom can cause in pregnancy, where you get a baby that's born in withdrawal because now they don't have that Kratom supplement any longer, and sure enough, we're about ready to publish those findings, but it's something that should absolutely be avoided in pregnancy. And we started to get the physicians to ask when they come in to deliver babies, they ask them, what substances are you taking? Do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you do this? I said, do you guys ask about supplements? And they said, no, not usually. And I said, well, we should ask about supplements in general, but we should definitely be asking about Kratom use as its popularity has increased. I've given in-services to ER departments, talking to them about it, saying you need to find out if people are using Kratom in addition to whatever else they've been using when they show up. Not only that, it gets even more complicated because, as we've already discussed, there's all these different forms of products, right? And so just getting kratom use isn't really informative enough because it doesn't really tell us what their exposure has been. So if you come in and say, yep, this guy just drank alcohol at the bar for the last 2 hours, well, did he drink a couple light beers or seltzers, or did he drink, a bunch of tequila shots? There's a big difference. And we generally know to subclassify that. We don't call alcohol by alcohol. We say, oh yeah, he had a beer, he had a shot, he had this or that. We don't do that with kratom products, and that's another risk and danger in not only our healthcare providers not being educated enough to ask about kratom use, but if they are fortunate to ask about it, do they ask, what type of product?
Detail.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you need that kind of detail. It totally makes sense.
Public
you're a
awareness
parent-
is so important.
Yeah, the awareness. And exactly. And what would you say to I mean, a lot of parents were commenting too. I mean, I think this is, and Jenny and I talk about this, like, you want to talk to your kids about drugs, you want to talk to your kids about this, but now we've got this whole other, you got to talk to them about supplements, right? Because a lot of the stories we heard were young people who didn't think they were doing anything wrong by taking something, or
Yeah.
they didn't know that there was a different concentration. What would you say to parents that they need to know about kratom?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, kids shouldn't be using it at all, period. If I had my way, I would recommend that it's not used until someone's 25, if they're going to use it, because this is when we know the brain is fully developed. If I had the ability to rewrite liquor laws and tobacco laws and all those, I would change them all to 25. Just because we understand neuroscience so much better now, and we know that the brain is done developing, and we don't understand how all these substances affect brain development. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is these are substances that can certainly cause some sort of psychoactivity, which, when you don't have a fully developed brain and you don't have a full functioning frontal cortex, that's our executive command center that helps us make rational decisions and realize that we don't need to do more of this,
Right.
that puts those individuals at risk. So, young kids, and I have 2 sons, and I have 2 in high school at home that are stepkids, a son and a daughter. I freak out all the time when I see these products available, and that goes for gummies with mushrooms and CBD gummies and THC drinks at the stores now, and all of these different products are something that kids should be avoiding. Kratom absolutely should be avoided by kids, and like I said, in some states they've regulated it to 18, in some states 21. I would write it at 25.
Some states, no regulation.
Yeah, most states.
Yeah, most states, no regulation.
I think that the awareness today has really helped because, we don't want to fear monger, and there's also so many questions. But I really do think now, from talking to you, that awareness is one of the things that's key. Just, parents and anyone that works in the medical field, just awareness and education, because the gamut of it is enormous, obviously. It almost feels like it's just overwhelming. I can't imagine being in your shoes and having the pressure you have with, the government entities. So I really appreciate the facts today, because it's so unregulated and there's so many aspects to it, whether it's organic or whether it's synthesized and what the concentration is. And, there's no manufacturing regulation, and states are all over the place. So,
And people's bodies react differently.
right.
Right. It's chemistry.
And-
It's chemistry too. Yeah.
To that point, we don't even understand, when we talk about special populations of individuals, we don't understand if you have an underlying cardiac disorder or if you have an
Right.
underlying kidney disorder or liver.
Comorbidities.
And yeah,
We have no idea how these products behave. We're learning, unfortunately, at the saddest of all possible ways of learning, which is individuals that end up deceased. We're starting, potentially to get to the point where we can correlate what pre-existing conditions may be problematic with use. But again, we're guessing at this point. We haven't done
know.
studies to really understand that.
I mean, my big question too is, and I know we have to wrap it up soon, but in any other product was being sold that is regulated, like if Coca-Cola had 6 deaths, right, it from somebody walking in and buying it at a gas station, we would immediately see some sort of reaction. And we
Right.
had been, and just in California, as you know, Dr. McCurdy, they said 6, they had to put out a big warning. They said, listen, we found 7-OH in these 6 people, right, who we believe it's there, whether it was mixing with alcohol or it was just taking it, and we're not seeing, something immediately being done. Why is that? Like, it kind of is mind blowing because, I mean, even if you look at our comments, you'll see 3 other mothers who wrote in and say, hey, one of them said, I lost my son last Monday, to 7-OH. So I'm just curious, like, why it blows my mind that there's not like more of a knee jerk of even regulation. I'm not saying by the way, we know this helps a lot of people. We hear you. We saw your comments. We're not saying take this off, take it away, but some sort of regulation, you know what I mean, to make sure that these concentrated products are not available out there, and especially not available at a gas station.
Yeah, I mean, we know for many experiments in history that prohibition is not necessarily the answer, but
Right.
absolutely regulation is, and getting things into the proper sales environments.
Right.
As I said, these things have never caught on in mainstream. They were very close to getting into grocery stores and Amazons and Walmarts and those types of things. And there's been, quite frankly, a pushback from those places because of all this
Right.
uncertainty, and rightfully so. I really believe that, just my personal opinion, not my professional or scientific opinion, that things should be in a dispensary type location where there's education there, where there's someone that's monitoring who's actually buying these things, and it's not
Right.
a individual that's making minimum wage at a smoke shop.
Right.
Doesn't care who they sell or what they sell. And I'm not saying that's all smoke shops. I'm just saying that that's an example that we know is out there.
Yeah, no, I agree. Where can people go? I mean, I think that going back to what Jenny was saying about information, so many people said to us, I did not know where to get the proper information. Is there a place you can tell people to go if they want to understand more about Kratom, that they know the facts and it's not, being blown up on social or fear mongering or not true, right? Not factual.
So there's a few places. One, a lot of times you would like to really trust some of the medical websites that are there, but what we found is some of the medical websites are either involved with treatment centers, so they're a little biased in terms of how they're presenting information, or they're involved or sponsored by manufacturers, so that's going to bias information.
Right.
The FDA has done a decent job of putting some materials there in terms of education on their website, particularly about 7-OH. We at the University of Florida have a website that has a lot of factual information that's available. It's not easy to find, unfortunately, because if you Google Kratom, you get the Mayo Clinic usually as the first hit, and the Mayo Clinic has done a decent job of updating, but they're still outdated in terms of information that we understand and know.
So we'll have Dave right now. Dave, if you can find that website for University of Florida, let's make sure we put it up.
Yeah, and I should make sure that it's still up and live.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know because we'll make sure we put it on all platforms so people know and go.
University of Florida College of Pharmacy's website, pharmacy.ufl.edu, and I'm not sure what the extra cabbage is, but if you search that and Kratom, you should be able to find it's called a Kratom resource page.
Great.
We have a lot of information there. Some of that is outdated as well. I'll be honest. It's changing so rapidly
Fast, rapidly changing. Yep.
that is hard for us to keep up with even that. We have put out a lot of continuing medical education programs for healthcare professionals, nurses, doctors, pharmacists. We just, it's really hard to get the information out to get those educational campaigns. And it's really hard because there's only a few of us that have the expertise around the country to really spread the information in a what I would say more balanced way, and not in a fear mongering or one side or the other. I think there's a lot to be said there, that we really have to recognize that there is danger, but there is also potential for great help with this product, and it all boils down to regulation and access, and how can we control that as we move forward? How can we regulate that? How can we get these products, particularly the most dangerous ones, much more limited access, because the access is really the problem right now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, this has been so informative. I really appreciate, this is and your life's work. I mean, how long you've been at this it's incredible. And we're going to continue putting resources up on our platforms. But before we wrap up, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to have our listeners know, or do you think we did?
I think we could sit here all day and talk.
I know we could talk. I know. Well, that's why this conversation just started. So we said, right? It's really a conversation starter.
It's really, it's just really important that people keep an open mind, and it's really hard to do when you lose a loved one to this. I am totally empathetic in those situations. The whole reason I got into substance abuse research is because I had an uncle that died from alcoholism, and I couldn't understand how could something that's available everywhere in this country, kill him. And that really led me into understanding this. And I'm not here to tout benefits of alcohol either, but I really see that, there's a lot of education that needs to be done. There's a lot of things we still need to learn as educators. We certainly don't have all the answers. I don't know that I can work the rest of my career and get to all the answers, but we're doing the best we can and learning as much as we can, as quickly as we can. And I think those are the things that we need to have hope. We need to hope that our government is going to step in and do this regulatory process and get these things under control. I hate to say that the genie's out of the bottle, but the genie's out of the bottle, and it's going to be near impossible to put it back, because if things go into prohibition, they're just going to turn up in a black market or in
right, and that's more dangerous. 100%. Yeah, we need to find a way to have it available safely, and like you said, also people know what they're getting.
Yeah,
and that's what about
manufacturing and regulation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And when and I love that you keep saying, like, even if it's being sold, if it's sold at a place where you're at a dispensary and that person has been educated on the product, can tell you what kind of product it is, that who's buying it, and it's not just grabbing it like a candy bar. All right, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a start, right?
Start, yeah, 100%.
It's a start, and those are the things I think we really need to push for. As a scientist, we are studying and trying to get the information so that we can share the information. I'm not a policymaker. I'm not a regulator. So, for me to come out and say this is what should be done is kind of hard to. That's why I keep saying that's my personal opinions.
Right.
But absolutely, once we show the science, those regulators and those officials, in my mind, have a responsibility to understand that science and decide what that science is telling them about how it should be regulated.
And we as parents can educate our kids too on a smaller scale, and at least start here by, making sure that our children are aware, especially in states where it's not regulated, like in Georgia, it's not. So I think that's at least one little step we can take to ensure the safety, especially of the young ones. So.
Yeah, it's frightening because you got gummies out there, you've got products that are being sold that look like candies.
Well, in California, they went undercover because they banned anything that was like food, right? And then they went undercover and they saw that places were still selling the gummies, still selling the products they weren't supposed to be. So, it's like you said, like it's the cat's out of the bag. We got to figure out, right, how to keep people safe,
And I will also say I'll finish with hopefully some hope in this situation, because I'm just getting ready to leave this afternoon for our conference. So this will be our 5th conference since 2017, and actually our 3rd year in a row. We paused during COVID, and we used to do it every 2 years, but this is an international gathering of scientists and regulators and policymakers, as well as some of the people in the industry that are trying to do the right things. And we hold that in Orlando at our UF campus in Orlando each year. And there'll be over 100 of us gathered this week for the rest of the week, discussing the latest science, talking about some of the things we just talked about, what needs to be done, how can it be done, and what recommendations as scientists can we make to those policymakers and regulators so that they can make a more informed decision on trying to come up with, correct regulations and policies. So,
and is it focused on Kratom, the conference?
100%.
No.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And if you guys, I also want to let our listeners know, we're going to go deeper on our website at ogross.com. If you want to continue this conversation, we're also going to put up the resources that Dr. McCurdy has been talking about, and in any new information as well that we come across. We're going to keep this conversation going because, like we said, we just started. We could be talking to you for 3 hours. I know you have to run to your conference.
Yes.
You're like,
well, I mean, that being said, if there's enough interest and there's enough reason, I'd be happy to come back and have another discussion as well.
We would love that. We would love that. And also, please join us and tell us your story. Whether you're watching us on X right now, Facebook, or any of our other platforms like TikTok and Instagram, we want to hear from you. We want to continue to hear from you about this subject of Kratom and hear your stories. And if you have any questions, send us the questions. We will follow up and make sure that we can ask Dr. McCurdy.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much today.
So much, Dr. McCurdy.
Oh, thank you. This is so important, just to underscore the educational opportunity. And every time I try to get an opportunity to speak to people, I'm happy to do it because this education needs to get out there.
It does.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need support?
Well, that was cool.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Let me turn this off because I can still hear it. Okay, there we go. Because we ain't doing no substance abuse bullshit.
That was amazing. And yeah,
Dude, anytime I watch anything with Dr. McCurdy, though, it's amazing. I thought it was cool. He's like, "Yeah, I'm about to go to this conference." I'm like, "Hey, that's
I know.
know.
That's the one I was just at. What, a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or something like that.
Dude, I don't even know. It was like 2 weeks ago.
Everything's blurring together. I just know I was out there with
I guess
Dr.
it was
Whitey.
3 weeks ago. Yeah, because then you were sick for like a week, and then you came to Tennessee.
Dude, I was sick for like 2 weeks. Hold on, let me look at the calendar. I'm still at the tail end of my sickness.
Yeah, you sound better, but I can tell you're still a little bit sick.
Yeah, so I was out there for February 17th through the 21st. And then I was sick, and then had to go to Tennessee. So I flew two places in 1 month.
Oh man, I can't even. That's a lot. But
That was
hopefully,
amazing, though.
yeah, I bet. Yeah,
It is regulated in Georgia, though. You know,
yeah.
you gotta say that. It's trying to be even more stricter now, where Rick Townsend wants it put behind the pharmacy counter.
Yeah, I saw Sherry asked if I had seen the second one, and I have seen bits and pieces of it. And it's like that thing where like they're kissing McCurdy's ass, and then the second one comes out, and they're just like, yeah. I haven't seen it, all of it, but it seems like they just,
Like brushed him off.
no, but like they didn't really take in any of the information. I
I
think
haven't seen. I don't know what Sherry's talking about.
I think they're. Oh man, I can't remember who they have on the next one, but I mean, it's like anti-kratom, pretty much. You know what I'm saying?
Let me go look.
I'm trying to think of who in the heck it is. Because somebody sent it to me, and I was like, oh, crap. Yeah, go look. I can't remember.
Oh, with the person that did the documentary?
Yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. That's who it was. Yeah. So it's like they took and that's like what happens with so many things, or so many times, like when Dr. McCurdy comes on to things, it's like they just brush off everything he says and go to the next thing. Like, at least take it in.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
whatever.
Maybe we might play that one later.
I don't know if I can
Gross.
say I don't know.
I know. I know.
Because there's like another thing we were thinking about playing today, but I was like, I can't sit through that.
No, I know. I know.
It's been too hard of a week. Oh shit.
Man, what a week.
Yeah.
We had an amazing time in Tennessee, though. I freaking still think about the kava bar that we went to. Like, that was just so amazing.
I was telling my husband, I was like, dude, I am telling you, that was probably the best kava I've ever had. I've only had kava like 4 times, but it was like, not only like, because me and you were just kind of sipping on ours,
Yeah.
but it was like just the perfect like Zen feeling. And I think it's the environment too, because I walk in that place and I feel like I'm at home,
Yeah.
And it was like the most delicious taste. It was like Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal milk.
Well, I didn't try yours, but I had the velvet one, the velvet berry or something like that. It was so good.
Oh man. I mean, I had such a good time. I'm so glad I got to see you again in person, and then meeting Jordan in person, and it was just nice. It's always nice being able to hang out with your people. You know what I mean?
And then we got to meet Kels and then Dave,
Yeah.
Dave is entering his advocacy phase.
And he had the time of his life, boy. Y'all, Dave met, I don't know if anybody's into WWE that's watching this, but there's a dude named Kane he's like the Knoxville mayor now, but I met him one time a while back in like Barnes and Noble. He was there at the courthouse that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like we were talking on the way home. I was dropping Dave off, and he's like talking about Kane. I'm like, when'd you meet Kane? Because he shows me the picture, and he's like, today. I'm like, shut up.
I think that's where he went to disappear to when we took the group photo, because he's not in our group photo.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that's not in our group photo, but there was, I mean, Tennessee showed out. I hope that we continue to do that. I do.
I say there was about 15, 20 people there.
Yeah.
But in our group photo, there was just like, I think 10 of us. But there was more people that were there,
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, if there was anybody else that was there that we didn't know of,
yeah,
I would hope they would have come over and introduced themselves, But
and then I was thinking today, I was actually thinking, man, maybe we should have sat in the front row.
Well, it said reserved in the front row.
Oh, yeah, it did, huh?
Yeah, that's why I didn't sit in the front row. Because I was thinking about it, and when I saw the reserved, I was like, ah.
Who the hell gets to decide who sits in the reserved seats?
I'm guessing it's for like expert witnesses and stuff.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly,
Oh,
we
hey,
were just talking
Kelly.
about you.
Yeah. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I think, I don't know. And then I was like, well, maybe we should have went up there with like signs and stuff. I think we should if it gets down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah, because there's Deborah. Well, is
Oh,
that?
hey, Deborah. Oh, wait. No, I don't think that's our
I don't think
Deborah.
that's the same Deborah. But hey, Deborah.
Hey, Deborah.
There was another lady named Deborah that showed up at the at the Tennessee
Yeah,
hearing.
she's, man, her and her husband were really cool.
I freaking love her husband.
Yeah.
But yeah, sitting in the audience, I could see people that were holding up signs, little paper sign things saying no to some other bill that was on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that. So we could have had signs then.
I don't know, honestly, because when you went last week, didn't the guy say like no profanity, no signs, no something, something, something? I don't know.
I don't know.
I find it suspicious that they moved, that they didn't even do the bill. I seriously do, because
Something happened.
we were following the agenda as it was going, and they were going in order. Then all of a sudden, they bounced
and
around.
last week they didn't go in order, but he said in the very beginning, we are not going to go in order. So just so y'all know, that's what's happening. But they was going in order this time, and all of a sudden they just went bloop,
Yep.
and then it was over.
They were going in order. Then they went to close to the bill. I think then they went over, or over the bill, and then went back. It was just weird. It was so weird. And like I said on my X post, they knew people were coming in out of state, because before we even attended the hearing, we had to submit the witness slips.
Yeah, you have to do it 24 hours in advance.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, they knew that there was a lot of people coming from out of town, and even from out of city, because I'd have put out where I was coming from.
Yeah, Deborah is also in Tennessee.
Yeah, I knew there's 2 Deborahs in Tennessee. Oh, girl, I know that.
We did
Don't even
amazing
get me
with the
started
traffic, though. We did amazing.
Yeah, except for on the way home.
On your way home?
Yeah, on my way home with that Nashville traffic, I was like, I just want to get out of Nashville.
Oh.
Helton, I don't know.
Probably, Kelly. Probably.
I'm not talking. I'll just hold my conversation opinion. My public opinion is on hold.
Mm-hmm.
That's
so
all.
The hearings are still supposed to be going on Monday and Wednesday.
I will say that Monday is a Senate bill, and it's number 80 on the agenda. And I didn't realize like the Tennessee Senate was so backed up. Like, we're pretty backed up, honestly. So I mean, I don't know. Like, it is number 80 on the agenda on Monday. So if anybody can make it on Monday, that'd be cool. But
Might be there for hours.
Yeah.
But then the Wednesday one, I think it's number 6, right?
Yeah. Last time I looked at it, it was number 6.
Supposedly.
Yeah. And that's Wednesday at noon.
Yep.
And I'm gonna have to sit this one out. But if it does come up again next week, I'll be there the week. I just can't. I need to take a break. Physically, I can't handle it. I can't handle it. I think it would kill me if I had to go again a third week. But
I felt so bad for you driving home Wednesday night, because it was nothing but storms on Wednesday, and I even told Jen, I was like, just spend the night again,
My husband was even like, I don't know why you didn't just spend the night again. I'm like, because I just wanted to get home. But I was like driving like this.
I bet you were. Because even my Uber ride home from Jordan's Airbnb, it was still bad.
Yeah. Kelly will be there Wednesday, and I think Chris, I don't know if he's bringing his. I told Chris I'm glad he got to bring his wife. She was really pretty. I'm glad
Yeah,
we got to meet everybody. I mean, it's nice to see, meet everybody that's fighting for the same thing in real life. It's
yeah.
really, there's something special about that.
It was such a vibe. It was such a freaking cool ass vibe.
Yeah, my husband, he didn't even, he was like, he didn't want to call me because he didn't want it in case I was driving. But at the same time, he's like, well, I'm hoping she spent the night out. I'm hoping she just went ahead and she'll call me and tell me she's going to go in and just stay another night. And I'm like, I'm too stubborn for that shit.
Oh, I got to meet Kelly's husband too. He's so cool. And then I met her daughter.
Did you? That's like her
Yes.
mini me. Yeah,
It was so
I made it. I made it. I just had to go really slow. But yeah, it sucked because I was like all just tensed up for like 3 hours.
driving
But
in the
I will be
rain.
there if it's after any time after this week. I will be there. I just got to take a break. But anyway, I guess if anything changes though, look at our social medias or hit us up. I was happy to get to meet you, Kelly. Of course, we met before, but it's always nice hanging out with you. I'm glad you got to meet Misty and Jordan. It was so cool too, because like we were all in the elevator going, and then all of a sudden
Yes.
Jordan walks in, and
Yeah.
I was like, ah!
He had just called me before we got into the elevator. Then all of a sudden, he's last to get in. The door was about to shut on him.
Yeah, and I was not expecting that because he had just called you.
Yeah.
So it was like, what? Yeah, it was really, really cool. It was really cool. And then just getting to hang out. And then after the kava bar, we went over to Daddy's Dogs.
It was so good. It was so good.
It was. I only ate half of it, but I ate the rest of it when I got home.
It was so good. It was almost like therapeutic to be with everybody. It really was.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like there's something special about meeting everybody that, you're all fighting for the same fight, the good
Yeah.
fight. There's something special about that.
And Kelly, both Dave and Kelly's videos are going viral on my TikTok.
Ah, nice.
I'm blocking the haters though, because you know what? I ain't got time for that.
No. That's what I do. Block.
Mhm.
I don't got time to mess around with all that. People like that
No,
don't get my
no.
energy. All right, well, we're going to get off of here. But yeah, if anything changes, hit me or Misty up if you have any questions. And we'll, make sure you get the right information if you want to be in Tennessee or send your story in to legislators, whatever y'all want to do. As
Yep.
always.
Yeah.
But thank y'all for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.